Senator Becker.
Thank you. I have a lot of thoughts on this housing bill, and I know some comments may be used by one side or the other. I just feel it's important to speak candidly. I do think, as my colleague from San Diego said, this is an honest and sincere attempt at transit-oriented development, but I have a lot of concerns. So, friends, we're going to have a little kind of Christmas spirit here. This is Festivus for me, airing some housing grievances. Because when I first asked about this bill, I said to the advocates, what about the RENA process? We just completed a 3-year, incredibly painful process across my cities and I just feel for the city council members, just countless hours of hearings with constituents upset just upset about the process. With direction, many rounds with HCD, often inconsistent direction, often changing of reviewers, moving of goalposts, and many cities only recently completed those housing elements where we told them, hey, you pick where you zone. And then here we're coming along and saying, hey, and by the way, we're going to choose for you in these areas. And so when I asked one of the advocates, they said, well, they zoned in the wrong places. So I'm like, okay, well, would you think of it, and I talked to the author too, would you, if we have this bill like this, which I do think there's some positive aspects, would you consider getting rid of the RENA process? And actually, many of the advocates said, yeah, I don't like the RENA process. It incents the wrong things. It's not really a thoughtful, policy-driven approach. And I said, will you have those conversations? And they said, yeah, we'll have those conversations going forward. So I very much look forward to those conversations because clearly there's a lot of unhappiness with our current RENA process, and it hasn't led to the outcomes that we want. How many years have we had this process now? And the problem doesn't seem to get better. In my district alone, we've spent about $25 million across the various cities, in some cases 10 to 15% of a city's budget working on the RENA process for what is probably going to result in very little housing. As we know, things aren't getting built right now primarily because of interest rates. So there were some positive zoning changes in the process, but overall, very much a flawed process. Despite that, I actually feel cautiously optimistic that this might actually, those conversations might be the beginning of a serious, thoughtful debate about our housing strategy. What is our housing strategy? What are our goals, and how are we going to measure this? And I've invited some of those advocates to my district, say, come to my district, come to the peninsula, see what's working, see what's not working, engage with constituents, see what's possible. The city of Burlingame, for example, 25,000 people, has 1,350 units recently completed or in process right now. That's actually more than San Francisco built all of last year. The city of Santa Clara, in my colleagues from Hayward's district, a small part of the city of Santa Clara, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, built more all of last year than all of San Francisco. Yet we don't get support for infrastructure. I have 14 cities, and we often point the finger at these suburban cities. I have 14 cities with a higher housing density than San Jose. I have 11 cities with a higher population density than San Jose. But again, we don't get the infrastructure support. Burlingame, as I've just mentioned, has the most dangerous train crossing in the state. On average, 1 to 2 cars get hit every year in Burlingame. 1 to 2 cars get hit every year, yet we cannot seem to finance a grade separation out of this body for that city. And then, of course, we have many other issues in the housing process. Caltrans owns surplus land right in my district, and we can't seem to pry that loose for them to build housing. School districts have plenty of land, as Tony Thurman has pointed out. We have to get the state to be a partner. There's not enough funding for affordable housing. Getting to the bill specifically, and again, I do think there's some positives. I Googled, I said, in Paris, what is the average height in the Paris apartments? And it's basically exactly what's kind of called for in this bill, right? That's sort of optimized for that amount, which I appreciate. But the proposed half-mile standard around hubs of all size, that may work in a city, in an urban core, but not necessarily in my district, right? And I've had conversations with the authors looking at, should we have a second tier for smaller cities where maybe, when you first came to me, I said, what about 1/8 of a mile, right? That'd be a huge win. If El Camino, we have lots of high-dense housing, that's a win. Why are we going so far in these neighborhoods? There is a opt-out provision. So in this bill, there is a local opt-out provision. I'm told many of my cities that have done a lot of this hard work would qualify. I am just honestly concerned about another bureaucratic process with HCD where we have to go to HCD and prove the local opt-out. I'm like, I don't know if we can stomach that. I can personally handle it. But the author has committed to work on that provision going forward and look at that transit opt-out provision. So with that, and having just emerged from the most difficult renal cycle in recent memory, I remain undecided. I'm leaning towards supporting the bill and giving the author a chance to keep working, because I do think there are a lot of important ideas here. I'm heartened that maybe this is actually the beginning of a conversation across the state to say what is actually working. We have colleagues here who have actually built a lot of housing in their cities previously. What is actually working here to move the needle, rather than kind of endless zoning bills that anger the local public and don't show a lot of results? So I'm hoping that if we keep working on this, this can be a step in the right direction. Colleagues, thank you for letting me air my grievances, and I look forward to the rest of the debate.
Senator, since half of the body will be speaking today, maybe one of them can sway you one way or the other.